This is going to be a super good video for some of you guys. I'm going to show you how to wire up a heating element for your Ice Master Max 2. Okay, and last thing before we get started, full disclosure, I am no certified electrician by any means, and I'm only just doing this through the best of my knowledge. So at any time, if you don't feel comfortable doing this, you might want to consider consulting a professional. And another thing to consider, if you plan on running both heating elements at the same time, you might want to do it a little bit different from me and run individual power cords for each individual plug. All right, so I'm pretty much going to show you guys how this relay acts as a light switch. I'm going to use my multimeter, and hopefully this will make you a little bit more comfortable and familiar how this relay is going to work. So first off, what we're going to do is there's 5 screws here. Go ahead and remove those 5 screws, and this is going to allow us to take that housing cover off to expose some of the electrical in the back. So now I'm going to set up my multimeter on either side of this relay just to show you how it works. And here's kind of a visual reference of where I'm hooking my leads up. Give you a better idea on the backside view of this temp controller. So now anytime you see this bottom left red light on, that means that your heating element is going to be on. And when the top left red light is on, that means the cooling pumps are engaged and it's pumping glycol through the fermenter. Okay, we got our multimeter hooked up on either side of this relay, and we're essentially going to act like this multimeter is our heating element. And right now our temp controller is turned off for heat, so we're going to turn it on, which will close the loop or turn on the heating element, and the multimeter will beep. Boom. We got a closed loop.
Oh, that makes sense now.
Alright, so now we just need to wire this bad boy up. So we are going to use this wiring diagram that I pulled directly off of K-Gland's website and off of their instruction manual. And Brewbuilt's not going to provide any of this. That's why I had to go to K-Gland. Okay, so now we need to take a look at the actual heating element here. So what they're trying to tell us is cutting to our power cord. However, we're only going to cut the hot wire. Keep in mind in the picture, their wire colors are going to be a little different because they're in Australia. Here in the US, we typically use green, black, and white. So it'll all really depend on your power cord. So once you cut your hot, all you would need to do is land them on either side of the relay. So you would plug your power cord into the wall and your hots are already landed on the relay. Once the relay closes, you got heat. So there you go. That's pretty much one way of doing it, but fuck that, I ain't trying to cut into my heating element. We all know those things are super expensive. So I'm going to show you how I wired it in, and I actually put plugs in to where you could just plug in your heating element. So check this out. So here for the most part is going to be your essential tool list. If you have a outlet tester, it's definitely going to come in handy. Go ahead and use that. Or if you have a multimeter, you can use this as well. You definitely want something that's going to be able to check if you hooked it up right. The reason why I went with this power cord is I just had it laying around. It's 16 gauge. It's rated for 13 amp, 125 volts. These I actually purchased off Amazon, and the only thing you want to make sure is that the gauges of the wire match, which is 16. Next, you're going to need some female disconnects. I was only able to find the 12 to 10 gauge wiring, but the most important part is getting a 0.25 inch tab. You'll need 3 wire nuts as well. And finally, you're going to need some sort of wire strippers and cutters. So I somehow lost my video on this, so I had to put something quick together. But anyway, if you use these plugs, just make sure that the orientation is the neutral is lined up with the larger left pinhole. And your hot wire is going to be lined up with the right smaller pinhole. Okay, let's get rocking. You're going to use the green from your power cord and you're going to use the yellows from both plugs. Every single one of these wires with the reds, black, everything, make sure you have enough exposed wire so we're making good contact. Then you just got to twist them together and throw on a wire nut. We are going to do the same thing for the 2 reds and the white from the power cord. So when I ordered this off Amazon, it came with 3 plugs. So I'm going to take the 3rd plug and I'm going to steal the black wire off of it. So now cut that spade off and cut the wire directly in half. Then go ahead and strip both sides of both wires. Now you're going to tie in those two black pieces with the black from the power cord and then throw a wire nut on. Alright, so at this point you should have two black wires coming off your power cord, and you should have one black wire coming off of either plug. Now all you need to do is throw one of these yellow spade connectors on the end of each one of those black wires. And grab some electrical tape. Make sure you wrap every single one of your connections, both spades, and I also do it for all the wire nuts. We want to make sure that none of this stuff is ever going to come apart. And after all that, this is what your wiring should look like. And just like I mentioned earlier, just make sure that your neutral's aligned with the long left slot on your plug. Okay, so now we get to hook everything up. You're going to take the black wire from your plug and hook it up to the right side of the relay and do this for both sides. And then we're going to take the two black leads coming off the power cord and we're going to land them on the left side of both the relays. Okay, we have it all wired up and the right temp controller shows the heating's on the left there's nothing on. So we're going to go ahead and plug in the power cord and this right one should light up. And there you have it. Now we threw the outlet tester on the left plug. We want to make sure that this one's wired up correctly as well. So we'll raise the temp on the temp controller and that's going to go ahead and gauge the heating relay. And as you can see here, I actually screwed up and had the hot on the large post and I had the neutral on the small post. So I ended up having to flip the wires on the backside of this plug. Alright guys, well that's pretty much the wiring part of this whole thing. So you pretty much can get an extension cord and do this exact same thing. All you would have to do is peel back a little bit of the insulation there, cut the hot wire or the black if you're in the US, and you're going to land it on either side of that relay, and then you'll have a plug right there readily available. I went with the surface mounts and you can kind of see here what the final product is going to look like and kind of where I routed the power cord. So if you want to do that, then continue to follow the video. If not, go the extension cord route. That's up to you. So finally, the last part, you're going to need a screwdriver. You're going to need some sort of tape measure. I ended up using this adjustable speed square. It worked well. Get yourself some electrical tape. You're going to need a file. You're also going to need a marker that could show up on the black paint. I also used this 1.5 inch cutoff wheel. I couldn't find my Dremel anywhere, so I ended up just plugging it right into my drill, and that worked. But if you have a Dremel, it'll be way easier. You'll also need a 1/2 inch step bit. You're going to drill out for the snap ring here, and this will ultimately protect your cord from the sharp edges of the metal. So I ended up deciding that I am going to mark 5 inches from the front of the unit just to allow enough room for the plug in between the handle and the electrical housing. Then once you're ready, go ahead and throw a mark. Right, so you can see where the plug is going to be centered in between the handle and the housing. So now close the lid because we want to make sure the plug is far enough from the lid when it's closed, and I ended up going with 1 inch and that worked out perfect. Now take a straight edge down from that 5 inch marker and this is going to give you the right side of the plug. So after measuring the plug, I decided to go with 15/16 on the height of the plug and the width of the plug that we need to cut out. We just need to make sure we have a big enough lip on the plug to cover the hole we cut out. So now you'll just need to measure 15/16 from the right line and the top line, and that'll give us all 4 sides of our plug. So now just connect all the corners together. I used my ruler, but you could use anything with a 90-degree corner. I always like to throw tape around all 4 of the corners, as you can see here, just in case your cutoff wheel slips. As you can see on the top left there, it also happened on the bottom left. Doesn't completely prevent it but scratching, but it helps. And once you get it all cut out, take your file to it and just try to remove any sharp edges and smooth it out real good. And when you're using the cutoff wheel, just try to take your time. If not, you could see I kind of scratched up the paint, and then I tried to use a black marker to fill it in, and overall really didn't work that good. So now you can see we're sitting pretty right at 15/16. So now let's throw in the plug. So you're going to do that for the plugs on both sides, and then the next step is going to be running the power cord through the back of the unit here. So what we got to do is remove that top lid for starters, 2 screws on either side. Then we got to remove 9 screws on this back panel. Just be careful here, try not to unplug any of these wires here. And then I decided to drill my 1/2-inch hole right here next to the power on-off switch. So if you do decide to leave the wires connected, just be careful. If not, you could take those bottom ones out and take a picture and just remember how they go back together. I also vacuumed out all the shavings from the metal just to keep it tidy. Then after that, I went ahead and plugged in that 1/2-inch snap ring. So the next step we got to do here is we need to start running this power cord. So for starters, go ahead and throw it through your 1/2-inch snap ring. Now I tried to get a good video here, but the easiest way to put it is go ahead and follow the existing power cord up. So you can see right where that little white tab is, there's a hole, and you can see the white tab on top where it gets penetrated. And then on the back side of that box, there's going to be opening back there. And I'll zoom to the back here to see if you can get a better look, but it's kind of hard to see. So where that brown and black wire are coming out there, then we'll run it up top here by that copper tube and then bring it into this main area here. This is where we want it. So I ended up using an 8-foot power cord to try to give me enough slack, and man, I tell you, this thing just worked out perfect. And here I'm measuring the length of the original cord just because I want both the cords to be around the same size. And then for a little cord management, go ahead and throw a zip tie, or you can even use electrical tape and zip those cords together. And now you should be good to go ahead and throw on the back panel with all the screws, along with the top lid with 2 screws on either side. So use another zip tie or electrical tape and go ahead and tie off this power cord to the left over here. We just want to make sure that it stays out of the way and it looks nice and clean. So at this point, we're pretty much done. All you'll need to do is reconnect your wiring. Then you can go ahead and throw on your electrical housing cover. And as you can see, I've ran both wires from both the plugs alongside either of the far end hoses. So in order for us to do this, I went ahead and I threw electrical tape on both sides of the wires just for extra protection. And once you put your 5 screws back, you're done. And here is a final look at what the completed project is going to look like. Alright guys, and that is all I have for you. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and at any time if you got any questions, throw a comment down below and I'll try to get back with you. But until then, cheers and happy brewing. See you next time.